According to the last United Nations report about the new nationally determined contributions to meet the Paris Agreement, it is predicted that global emissions levels will only decrease 0.5% by 2030, while to meet the goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees, emissions would have to drop not only half, but at least 45% by 2030. And even if the Paris Agreement target of staying well below the 2 degrees is met, due to the internal dynamics of the Earth system, we cannot exclude the risk of a global cascade of tipping points, which could push the Earth system as a whole into another state, into a hothouse Earth. In a scenario like this, no amount of economic cost-benefit analysis is going to help us. We are already in the very dangerous zone, approaching a planetary threshold where there will be a point of no return. But there is a possible stewardship trajectory in which you are running out of the time to get onto. But we still can, if we are able to really act together. Before anything else, climate change is a problem defined by the difficulty of collective action. Therefore, the biggest challenge we face is to create the conditions to make it possible to act together. A proper legal framework is the most basic requirement for any human action. This is why I am here to talk about something that, although is not usually discussed, it underlies our inability to tackle climate change. I will talk about how the laws view the global climate system. Think about this. To have any chance of being successful, we need not only to make huge cuts on emissions, but also to deliberately remove CO2 from the atmosphere by completing a large-scale biosphere restoration. Together, these two efforts can, in theory, recover a stable climate. But how can this be done if the benefits of nature that produce a stable climate are intangible, legally and economically visible, and do not stay within the borders of any country? To understand the problem that is at stake, let's try first to understand what a stable climate is. A stable climate is a visible manifestation of a well-functioning Earth system, which in turn relies on a resilient and well-functioning biosphere. This stability is based on a well-defined pattern of atmospheric and ocean circulation. A pattern of stable dynamics of the functioning of the Earth system can be compared to the software of the planet, like the software and the hardware. This software is being damaged by human activities that have been changing the biochemical composition of the atmosphere, driving an increase in global temperature, which among many other consequences is contributing to the melting of the polar ice. This changes the variation of temperature between poles and tropics and the stable pattern of global thermodynamics. Take a look at what is happening in the North Pole and the consequent destabilization of the atmospheric circulation patterns, as well as the slowing down of the ocean circulation. The tragedy of the commons is a problem in economics that occurs when individuals neglect the well-being of society in the pursuit of personal gain. This is a truly tragedy of the commons in a planetary scale. The way our matter moves around the planet, creating these stable circulation patterns that corresponds to a stable climate, can only be classified as an intangible asset. A planetary system with a stable, correctly operating software, although intangible, is our most outstanding global common. It is at the very foundation of everything. It is the planetary system that supports life on Earth, the basis for all human civilization, and our most valuable asset. However, although climate change is accepted as a tragedy of the commons, in the world of law, a stable climate is not recognized as a common good. The great issue that is at stake is that this correctly operating software is not a material thing. It is something global in nature we cannot touch or divide, and spans across national borders. no claims of sovereignty can be made. Because of this, the legal status of climate is still not very clear. Thus, when climate change entered in the UN agenda, a completely new question emerged. What is a stable climate from a legal standpoint? In 1988, there was a proposal to recognize a stable climate as a common heritage of humankind, but countries refused to accept a common good that exists inside and outside all borders, and chose another approach. Climate change was established as a common concern of humankind, which is still the legal framework of the Paris Agreement. A concern is a vague political concept, meaning that we are worried about something. But in legal terms, until today, nobody knows what a concern is. We don't know the rights and duties of countries arising from that concern. On the other hand, the acceptance of the heritage concept would mean that we accept the existence of this truly common good that belongs to everyone, that exists inside and outside all the jurisdictions of states. I will try to explain why this makes all the difference. Let's take a minute to think about the consequences of the concern option. Under the current concern paradigm, each country commits to produce less emissions, but even if this is accomplished, at the end of the day, the sum of less damage is still a damage. It is a negative sum game. But the current paradigm also has another dimension. You can sell the credits resulting from making fewer emissions to someone else that will make these emissions. Or you can sell the credits resulting from the sequestration of carbon in a forest to neutralize the emissions of someone else who has already made the emissions. In this case, it is a zero-sum game. In either case, emissions must exist in order to recognize the value of the removing the said emissions. In this paradigm, removing or cleaning all the emissions for everyone's benefit has no value. And why? Why does this happen? This happens because the concerned approach does not consider the existence of this common good that belongs to everyone and to all generations. And therefore, removing CO2 from the atmosphere for the benefit of all humanity is like cleaning something that belongs to no one. No one will compensate you for the benefits that will spread across the planet for the benefit of all. This is like cleaning in a legal void, and thus today there are no economic mechanisms to compensate for the benefits that someone creates for the common good. Sadly, in the current concerned legal paradigm, we only have mechanisms to neutralize emissions, and by this way, we maintain the rule that only through the destruction of nature we can create wealth. In a scenario like this, it is impossible to have what we really need: a society able to restore and maintain a stable climate for the benefit of all humankind and the next generations. What should have more value for us humans? The intensive biochemical work performed by forests to stabilize climate, or cutting the trees to extract timber? Unfortunately, our current economy only values commodities like timber, soil, cattle, and others. But value is not a given thing. It was always shaped and created throughout the history of economics. Today, what is perceived as wealth creation is to make less damage and not to produce the natural intangibles that support life on Earth. And to make less damage, it's only to avoid losses. What creates real value for our societies is the intangible benefit of the work of nature that maintains a stable climate. Our current economy is valuing the wrong things and ignoring or underestimating the value of nature. This happens because we are unable to legally recognize this intangible global common good, and therefore the work of nature that supports life on Earth is considered as an externality by economists. So, if you can say that there is already a broader perception that what has more value is the work of nature, for introducing this value into the economy, there is a need for a legal innovation capable of recognizing this natural software as our intangible common good. This can be the legal basis that will enable us to give value to what really matters and to build a regenerative economy with a permanent governance system to maintain a stable climate. A truly paradigm shift. Today, economic science have already designed the mechanisms to avoid the fatality of the tragedy of commons and to allow for collective action to successfully manage the commons. Earth system science have also designed the planetary boundaries. Thus, we have the conditions not only to legally define this well-functioning software, but also to successfully manage it as a common good. And this is not a new concept. Our contemporary society is already built on the top of intangible goods like copyright, the goodwill of enterprises, or the value of brands. In the field of outer space law, we have even recognized intangible goods in nature, for example, orbits and frequency bands. Why can't we recognize this pattern of stability that corresponds to a stable climate as an intangible common heritage of humankind on Earth? Why? With this legal innovation, it would be possible to give value to the work of nature without destroying it, and to account for its benefits made for the climate as our common heritage. It would be possible to include activities that restore and maintain a stable climate in the GDP of each country, enabling each actor to be encouraged not only to avoid damage, but also to produce benefits for the common good. This is only possible with a system of accountability capable of giving economic visibility to all the positive and negative impacts that everyone produces in the common good. With the planetary boundaries, we can define the safe operating space for humankind and the intangible global common that unites us all, and around the common good, to organize the system of governance to manage its use. Can you imagine the cascading effects in terms of reduction of emissions, regeneration of biosphere, redistribution of income, fairness between peoples, and hope for the next generations? We must build a world where the creation of the natural intangibles that support life on Earth corresponds also to the creation of wealth for human societies. It is really a game changer. To rethink the legal status of climate is not a theoretical discussion. It is the possibility of overcoming the biggest obstacle we face, our current inability to take global collective action. After the negotiations on the Global Pact for the Environment, the UN General Assembly decided to postpone this process for a high-level declaration foreseen for 2022 at the commemorations of the 50 years of the UN Environment Programme. This is a unique opportunity to address the Earth system as a single whole in which climate change, biodiversity crisis, and global pandemics are all interconnected. We need to recognize, restore, and protect our intangible and indivisible planetary home. We must create a beacon of hope for our generations and the generations to come. Thank you.